Did you know that South Carolina was shaken by one of the most powerful earthquakes in U.S. history, so strong it made church bells ring more than 1,000 miles away? That in its coastal waters lie real pirate ships, including the feared Blackbeard's flagship, and that beneath its swamps are hidden fossils of giant prehistoric creatures. South Carolina is not just beaches and southern charm. It's history, it's mystery, and it's raw natural power. Get ready, because today you'll discover 35 incredible facts about South Carolina that will completely change the way you see the wild heart of the American South. 35. The Island of the Monkeys. You might think I'm pulling your leg, but if you take a boat out into the St. Helena Sound, strictly keeping your distance, you'll find Morgan Island. It's uninhabited by humans, but it is absolutely overrun by about 3,000 to 4,000 rhesus macaque monkeys. Back in 1979, the government needed a place to house a breeding colony for research, so they shipped these guys from Puerto Rico to this secluded South Carolina island. It's the only free-ranging colony of rhesus macaques in the United States. Locals call it Monkey Island, naturally. You can't step foot there. It's owned by the Department of Natural Resources and used for medical research, but you can see them from the water, hanging from the trees like it's the Amazon. It is surreal to be cruising through the low country marsh and see a primate staring back at you. 34. The real peach capital. I know. Georgia's license plates say the peach state, but as a traveler who appreciates the truth of the soil, I have to burst that bubble. South Carolina actually produces more peaches than Georgia in a typical year, sometimes more than double the volume. The geography of the Ridge region in South Carolina creates a microclimate perfect for stone fruit with well-drained soil and just enough chill hours. We're talking over 90,000 tons of peaches annually compared to Georgia's 40,000. It's a friendly rivalry, sure, but if you're buying a basket of fresh peaches on the East Coast in July, there's a very high statistical probability they were grown in the sandhills of South Carolina, not Georgia. The tastier peach state is a nickname they're trying to make stick, and geologically, they've got the receipts to prove it. 33. The Forest of Champions. Deep in the center of the state lies Congaree National Park, and it is a time capsule. This place preserves the largest intact expanse of old-growth bottomland hardwood forest remaining in the southeastern United States. Why does that matter? Because while the rest of the South was being logged for timber in the 19th and 20th centuries, this floodplain was just too difficult to access. As a result, the trees here are giants. We call them champion trees. It has one of the highest concentrations of the tallest trees of their species in the world. I've walked the boardwalk there, and the loblolly pines look like redwood cousins. It's a flood basin, so the nutrient-rich waters of the Congaree and watery rivers rejuvenate the soil constantly, allowing these ancient trees to reach heights of nearly 170 feet. It's like walking into a cathedral built by nature. 32. The only tea plantation. If you drink tea in America, you're almost certainly drinking leaves from Asia or Africa unless you're drinking American classic tea. The Charleston Tea Garden on Wadmalaw Island is the only commercial tea plantation in North America. The geography here is unique because Wadmalaw Island has the perfect subtropical humidity and sandy soil that Camellia sinensis, the tea plant, loves. Very similar to parts of China or India. It started as a Lipton research facility decades ago before becoming a private garden. I've taken the trolley tour through the acres of tea hedges. It's lush, green, and smells incredibly fresh. They harvest the top leaves with a specialized machine that looks like a cotton picker crossed with a lawnmower. It's a little slice of the British Empire right in the Low Country. 31st, the roof of the state. For a state famous for its flat coastlines and marshes, South Carolina has some serious elevation in the northwest corner. Sassafras Mountain sits right on the border with North Carolina and reaches an elevation of 3,560 feet. It's part of the Blue Ridge Escarpment. Recently, they built an observation tower at the summit, and the geographical positioning is spectacular. On a clear day, you can see 4 different states: South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, and Tennessee. It's not just a hill, it's a jagged edge of the Appalachian chain. The hike up there changes biomes entirely, moving from hardwood forests to a rocky, windy summit that feels more like New England than the South. It's the highest point in the state and a reminder that SC isn't just one big beach. Before continuing, be sure to subscribe and leave a like to keep discovering the strange and incredible geography of our entire country. 30. The mystery of the Carolina Bays. This is one of my absolute favorite geological mysteries in the world. Scattered across the coastal plain of South Carolina are thousands of elliptical depressions called Carolina Bays. They are all oriented in the exact same northwest-southeast direction. If you look at them on a satellite map, it looks like a shotgun blast hit the east coast. For decades, people thought they were caused by a meteor shower or a comet exploding over the ice sheet during the last ice age. While modern science leans more toward wind and water shaping them over millennia, lacustrine theories, nobody knows for 100% certain. Some are dry, some are lakes, and some are swamps. But they all share that eerie, perfect oval shape and specific alignment. Standing in one, you feel like you're standing in a crater from another world. 29. The Blackwater Giant. The Edisto River is a marvel of hydrology. It is the longest free-flowing Blackwater river in North America, stretching over 250 miles without a single dam to stop it. Blackwater doesn't mean it's dirty. It means the water is tea-colored, stained dark by tannins from decaying vegetation in the surrounding swamps. It's basically a giant flowing cup of herbal tea. Because it's free-flowing, the water levels fluctuate naturally with the seasons, creating a dynamic ecosystem that changes constantly. I've kayaked down it, and the silence is profound. You float past ancient cypress knees and white sandbars that appear and disappear with the rains. It completely traverses the state from the sandhills to the ocean, serving as a massive artery for wildlife that you won't see anywhere else. 28. The day they nuked Mars Bluff. Okay, this is a terrifying geographical fact. On March 11th, 1958, a B-47 Stratojet bomber was flying over South Carolina when a fault in the locking mechanism caused it to accidentally drop a Mark 6 nuclear bomb. It fell right onto the community of Mars Bluff near Florence. Now, thankfully, the fissile nuclear core, the part that makes the mushroom cloud, wasn't installed, but the bomb still had thousands of pounds of conventional high explosives. It hit the ground and detonated, creating a massive crater 75 feet wide and 35 feet deep. It destroyed a house and injured the family inside, but miraculously, no one died. You can still visit the crater today. It's a chilling geographical scar, a literal hole in the ground where the Cold War almost got very, very hot in a quiet SC neighborhood. 27. The Angel of the Earth. On Johns Island, you will find a living organism that defies logic, the angel oak. It's a southern live oak that is estimated to be anywhere from 400 to 500 years old, though some locals swear it's over a millennium. Geographically, it's a testament to the resilience of this species on the Sea Islands. The tree produces shade that covers 17,000 square feet. Its longest branch is 187 feet long. That's longer than the Leaning Tower of Pisa is tall. The heavy limbs are so massive they rest on the ground and then curve back up toward the sky. It has survived countless hurricanes, floods, and earthquakes that flattened everything around it. Standing under it, you realize that in terms of biological geography, this tree is the landscape. It's not just a tree, it's an ecosystem unto itself. 26. The Underwater Ghost Forest. Lake Marion isn't your typical lake. Created in the 1940s as part of the Santee Cooper hydroelectric project, the dam was finished just as World War II broke out. The frantic need for power meant they didn't have time to clear the trees from the valley before flooding it. The result? A massive underwater forest. Thousands of cypress and pine trees were submerged. And because cypress wood is rot resistant, they are still down there. If you boat across Lake Marion, you have to stay in marked channels, or you will tear the hull off your boat on the ghost trees lurking just inches below the surface. It creates a spooky prehistoric landscape where dead gray trunks rise out of the mist, making it one of the best and most dangerous fishing spots in the country. 25. The Island Time Forgot. Wadmalaw Island, which I mentioned regarding the tea, has a fascinating geographical restriction. It has practically no commercial development. By local zoning laws and the will of the residents, there are no big box stores, no hotels, and very few paved roads compared to its neighbors like Kiowa or Seabrook. It is effectively frozen in time, preserving the agricultural geography of the Low Country from a century ago. It's 10 miles long and 6 miles wide of pure rural maritime landscape. Driving there feels like crossing a border into into the past. You see shrimp boats, tomato fields, and ancient oaks, but you won't see a neon sign. It's a deliberate geographical preservation effort to keep the sea island way of life from being paved over by condos. 24. The Gullah Geosphere. St. Helena Island is more than just land. It is the geographical heart of the Gullah Geechee corridor. Because of its isolation on the coast, historically reachable only by boat until bridges were built in the 20th century. The enslaved West Africans brought here to work rice and cotton plantations were able to retain their African culture, language, and cooking methods far more than African Americans on the mainland. This isolation created a unique cultural geography. The Penn Center on the island was the first school for freed slaves in the South. To this day, the land ownership patterns and the heirs property laws on St. Helena reflect a communal way of living that is distinct to the Gullah people. It is a place where the geography of the islands directly protected and preserved a unique heritage. 23. The Gold Rush before California. Most people think of the Wild West when they hear gold rush, but the first true gold rush in American history actually happened right here in the Carolinas. Geologically, South Carolina sits on the Carolina Slate Belt, which is rich in minerals. The Haley Gold Mine in Kershaw is the largest gold mine in the eastern United States. It was discovered in 1827, decades before the 49ers went to California. It's not just a historical footnote, it is still an active, massive open-pit mining operation today. The geography here is deceptive. What looks like sleepy pine forest on the surface is actually hiding massive sulfide deposits deep underground containing microscopic gold. During the Civil War, the gold from this very mine was crucial for the Confederacy, leading General Sherman to specifically target and destroy the mining equipment during his march. It's a literal treasure chest buried in the sandhills. 22. The Cheese Tunnel. In the Blue Ridge Mountains of Oconee County, there is a tunnel that goes nowhere, but smells delicious. The Stumphouse Mountain Tunnel was an ambitious pre-Civil War engineering project intended to connect Charleston to the Midwest by rail. They drilled over 1,600 feet into solid blue granite before the war, and lack of funds halted the project forever. But here's the geographical twist. The interior of the tunnel maintains a constant temperature of about 50 degrees with high humidity year-round. In the 1950s, Clemson University realized this was the exact microclimate needed to cure blue cheese. For years, the university aged its famous Clemson blue cheese right inside the mountain. While they've since moved to climate-controlled rooms, the tunnel remains a geographical oddity, a massive hand-drilled hole in the mountain that served as the state's refrigerator. 21st, the Caribbean of the upstate. If you hike up to the cliffs in the northwest corner of the state, you'll look down on Lake Jocassee and you won't believe you are in South Carolina. The water is a startling deep turquoise, more like the Caribbean than a southern reservoir. This is because the water comes from cold, clean mountain rivers flowing off the Blue Ridge Escarpment, and the lake is incredibly deep, over 300 feet in places. Because it was flooded relatively recently, in the 1970s, the geography under the water is still intact. There is a submerged hotel, a graveyard, and even the bridge that was used in the movie Deliverance sitting at the bottom of the lake. It is one of the few places in the state where you can scuba dive to see waterfalls that are now underwater. The water is so pure and cold that it supports a trout fishery that rivals anything in the Rockies. 20. The Ancient Coastline. When you drive through the center of the state near Columbia and Aiken, you're driving through the Sandhills region. Geographically, this isn't just a sandy patch of dirt, it is the ancient beach of North America. Millions of years ago, the Atlantic Ocean stretched all the way inland to where the state capital sits today. The fall line marks the prehistoric shoreline where the hard, crystalline rocks of the Piedmont meet the softer sedimentary rocks of the coastal plain. This geological boundary determines everything from where the rivers become unnavigable, creating waterfalls, to where cities were built. If you dig in the sand in the middle of the state, hundreds of miles from the current ocean, you can still find shark teeth and marine fossils. You are literally walking on the beach of the Eocene epoch. 19. The Flytrap Southern Range. This is a botanical geography fact that usually causes arguments between North and South Carolinians. The Venus flytrap, that alien-looking carnivorous plant, is native to only one tiny region on the entire planet, a 75-mile radius around Wilmington, North Carolina. However, that radius geologically ignores state borders and extends into Horry and Georgetown counties in South Carolina. While North Carolina gets the fame, South Carolina is the only other place in the world where these plants grow in the wild in their native habitat. They thrive thrive in the nitrogen-poor sandy soils of the Carolina Bays and pine savannas. It is an incredibly specific biogeographical niche. If you move them even 50 miles inland, they won't survive naturally. Seeing one in the wild in the Lewis Ocean Bay Heritage Preserve is like spotting a dinosaur. It's a remnant of a very specific, fragile prehistoric ecosystem. 18. The Purple Martin Hurricane. In the middle of Lake Murray, there is a small, unassuming piece of land called Bomb Island. Its geography is unique because it was used as a practice bombing range for B-25 crews during World War II, hence the name. But today, it hosts a biological phenomenon that shows up on weather radar. Every summer, it becomes the largest roosting sanctuary for purple martins in North America. We are talking about nearly 1 million birds converging on this single island every evening. The geography of the island, isolated, protected, and covered in specific vegetation, makes it the perfect safe haven. When they take flight in the morning to feed, the cloud of birds is so massive that it looks like a hurricane on the Doppler radar. It is a spectacle of animal migration that completely transforms the local airspace for a few months every year. 17. The Audubon of the South. Geographically, the I-85 corridor in the upstate, Greenville-Spartanburg area has transformed into a German enclave. When BMW decided to build its first full manufacturing facility outside of Germany, they chose Greer, South Carolina. This wasn't random. The geological layout of the land, the proximity to the deep water port of Charleston via rail, and the stable bedrock for heavy machinery made it perfect. Today, Plant Spartanburg is the largest BMW plant in the world by volume, bigger than the ones in Munich. This single decision altered the human geography of the region. You will find German schools, German festivals, and a distinct Euro-South culture that doesn't exist anywhere else in the region. The landscape here is now defined by test tracks and logistics centers, turning the red clay hills into a global automotive hub. 16. The Moonscape of the Piedmont. In Lancaster County, there is a place that looks like it belongs on another planet. It's called 40 Acre Rock, though the main granite exposure is actually closer to 14 acres. It is a monadnock, a massive isolated rock hill that resisted erosion while the land around it wore away. It is essentially a flat, bald mountain of granite. What makes this geographical feature so cool is the vernal pools. These are shallow depressions in the rock that fill with rainwater. Because the rock gets incredibly hot in summer and wet in winter, it has created a harsh micro-ecosystem where rare endemic plants like the endangered pool sprite live. These plants exist almost nowhere else. Walking across it feels like walking on the moon, with strange red succulents growing directly out of the stone in the middle of a forest. 15. The Veins of the Coast. The Ace Basin is one of the great conservation success stories of the world. Standing for the Ashepoo, Combahee, and Edisto rivers, this region forms a massive estuary where 3 rivers meet the sea. Geographically, it covers 350,000 acres of undeveloped wetlands. If you look at it from a satellite, it looks like the veins of a leaf or a human lung. It represents one of the largest undeveloped estuaries on the Atlantic coast. The geography here is a mix of fresh and saltwater marshes, maritime forests, and barrier islands. Because it has been protected from the resort development that consumed places like Hilton Head, it looks exactly as it did 200 years ago. It functions as a massive nursery for marine life, and the lack of light pollution makes it one of the darkest places on the coast for stargazing. 14. The Lighthouse in the Ocean, Morris Island. Lighthouse is a tragic lesson in coastal geology and erosion. When it was built in 1876, it stood roughly 1,200 feet inland, surrounded by dunes and marsh. Today, it stands nearly 2,000 feet offshore, completely surrounded by water. The construction of the jetties at the entrance to Charleston Harbor altered the longshore drift, the movement of sand along the coast, causing massive erosion on Morris Island. The ocean literally ate the island out from under the lighthouse. It is a surreal sight to stand on Folly Beach and see a tall, lonely tower rising directly out of the waves. It's still standing, barely, a testament to 19th century brickwork fighting a losing battle against the relentless geography of the shifting Atlantic sands. 13. The Nuclear Savannah. There's a massive chunk of South Carolina that you are forbidden to enter. The Savannah River Site, SRS, covers about 310 square miles. That's bigger than Singapore. In the 1950s, the US government seized this land to produce materials for hydrogen bombs, tritium and plutonium-239. Geographically, they chose this spot because of the abundant water from the Savannah River and the isolated bedrock stable terrain. Whole towns like Ellington were bulldozed and vanished from the map to create this exclusion zone. Today it remains one of the most secured and monitored geographical sites in the nation. While the reactors are shut down, the site is a strange nature preserve by accident. Because no humans have lived there for 70 years, the deer, boar, and alligator populations have exploded inside the nuclear fences. 12. The Great Blue Wall. The Cherokee called the Blue Ridge Mountains the Great Blue Wall, and nowhere is this more geographically apparent than at Table Rock State Park. As you approach from the flat Piedmont, the mountains don't just roll in, they erupt. The face of Table Rock is a massive granite dome that rises vertically, marking the abrupt end of the Blue Ridge Escarpment. This is the edge of the continent's Appalachian spine. The geography here creates a drastic weather divide. Storms often get stuck on the wall, dumping massive amounts of rain on the Jacasay Gorges region, making it a temperate rainforest. The transition from the flatlands to the vertical rock face happens in the span of just a few miles, creating one of the most dramatic elevation changes in the southeast. 11. The land owned by God. In the small town of Blackville, there is a natural spring that has been a local legend since the Revolutionary War. Wounded British soldiers were said to have been healed by its waters thanks to the mineral content. But the geographical secret here isn't the water, it's the deed. In 1944, the land's owner, Lute Boylston, was getting too old to manage it. Instead of selling it to a developer or the state, he went to the courthouse and legally deeded the land to Almighty God. And yes, the deed was accepted. To this day, God's Acre Healing Springs is the only piece of property in South Carolina, and possibly the US, legally owned by the creator. The local government maintains it as a caretaker, but technically, it has no human landlord. You can fill up your jugs for free, drinking from the only tap that bills directly to heaven. Remember to subscribe and like to keep learning amazing information about each state in our beautiful country. 10. The elevator for fish. Dams are usually bad news for fish trying to swim upstream, but at the St. Stephen Dam in Berkeley County, they built a solution that sounds like a joke, but is a geographical marvel: a fish lift. It is essentially an elevator for American shad and blueback herring. The geography of the Santee Cooper Lakes blocked these anadromous fish from their spawning grounds for decades, so the Army Corps of Engineers built a lock system that attracts the fish with a specific water current, traps them in a hopper, and then physically lifts them 40 feet up over the dam to release them into Lake Moultrie. It passes hundreds of thousands of fish every spring. You can actually visit and watch through a viewing window as thousands of confused fish take the only elevator ride of their lives. 9. The Silk of the Trade. Winnsboro, a small town in Fairfield County, sits on top of a massive pluton of granite that changed the look of America. This isn't just any rock, it's Winnsboro blue granite, and it was once so prized for its flawless texture and durability that it was nicknamed the Silk of the Trade. Geographically, this specific vein of stone is unique to the South Carolina Piedmont. It was used to build the Flatiron Building in New York City, the old post office in Charleston, and monuments across Washington, D.C. Although the quarries are mostly quiet now, the geology of this one small town provided the literal foundation for some of the most famous architecture in the United States. If you see a blue-gray monument in a historic city, there's a good chance it came from a hole in the ground in Winnsboro. 8. The Bridge to Nowhere. Deep in the mountains of Greenville County stands the Poinsett Bridge. Built in 1820, it is the oldest surviving bridge in South Carolina. But what makes it geologically and architecturally fascinating is that it looks like it belongs in medieval Europe, not the Appalachians. It features a 14-foot Gothic arch built with unmortared stone. It was designed by Robert Mills, who designed the Washington Monument, and named after Joel Poinsett, who introduced the poinsettia to the U.S. The road it served, the Old State Road, was once the main artery through the mountains, but modern highways bypassed it ages ago. Now it sits alone in the woods, a moss-covered Gothic relic spanning a small creek, looking like a portal to Narnia rather than a piece of American infrastructure. 7. The Reverse River. Columbia is famous for being famously hot. Famously hot is literally the slogan. But the Saluda River, which flows right through the city, is freezing cold. Geographically, this is an anomaly caused by the Lake Murray Dam. The water released into the lower Saluda comes from the very bottom of the lake, Hypolimnian, where the water is deep and cold, around 50 to 60 degrees year-round. This artificial geography has created a put-and-take trout fishery in the middle of a subtropical city. You can catch rainbow and brown trout in downtown Columbia in July, while the air temperature is 100 degrees. It is likely the the only place in the Deep South where you need waders to keep from getting hypothermia in the summer. 6. The Intergalactic Port. You can't make this up. In Bowman, South Carolina, just off a dusty road, sits the UFO Welcome Center. It's a 46-foot wide flying saucer built out of wood, fiberglass, and scrap metal by a local man named Jody Pendarvis. He built it in his backyard to give aliens a place to crash, literally and figuratively, when they arrive. Geographically, it's a bizarre landmark in the middle of flat farmland. It has a shower, a TV, and air conditioning for the extraterrestrial guests. While it looks like a pile of junk to some, it has become a piece of genuine folk art geography. It represents the eccentric spirit of the rural South better than any museum could. It recently suffered fire damage, but the structure and the optimism remains. 5. The Graveyard of Trees. Bulls Island, part of the Cape Romain National Wildlife Refuge, has a beach that looks like the aftermath of an apocalypse. It's called Boneyard Beach. The geography of the barrier island is constantly shifting. The ocean is eroding the north end of the island at a rapid rate. As the saltwater encroaches on the maritime forest, it kills the oak and cedar trees. The sun and salt bleach the dead trunks white, leaving a skeleton forest standing in the surf. It is hauntingly beautiful. Unlike a normal beach with dunes, here you are walking through a graveyard of massive trees that are fighting a losing war against the Atlantic. It is a stark visual lesson in how dynamic and destructive the coastal geography actually is. 4. The Liquefied City. The Charleston earthquake of 1886 was the most damaging earthquake to hit the eastern United States in recorded history, estimated at a magnitude of 7.0 or higher. But the geographical evidence is what's wild. The quake was so powerful it caused liquefaction. The sandy soil turned into a liquid slurry and erupted out of the ground in sand blows or sand boils. You can still find traces of these ancient sand volcanoes in the geological record of the Lowcountry. It deformed railroad tracks into S-curves and famously rang church bells in Boston. It proved that the passive margin of the East Coast wasn't as geologically quiet as everyone thought. Charleston is basically built on a bowl of jelly, and in 1886, someone shook the bowl. 3. The Landscape of Gold. If you look at aerial maps of the Combahee or Ashepoo rivers, you will see a geometric grid pattern that looks like a giant circuit board stamped onto the marshes. These are the remnants of the Carolina Gold rice fields. In the 18th and 19th centuries, enslaved laborers moved millions of tons of earth to create a massive hydraulic machine. They used rice trunks, wooden sluice gates to harness the tidal geography. They would let fresh water in when the tide rose, pushing the salt water back, and drain it when the tide fell. It completely terraformed the coast. Today, these fields are protected wetlands for waterfowl, but they remain a geographical scar of an agricultural empire built on human suffering and engineering genius. 2. The Time Capsule in the Mud. For over a century, the location of the H.L. Hunley, the first submarine in history to sink an enemy ship, was a mystery. It vanished in 1864. In 1995, it was found buried in silt about 4 miles off Sullivan's Island. The geography of the burial is key. The specific sediment conditions created an anaerobic, oxygen-free environment that preserved the submarine perfectly, including the remains of the crew and a gold coin carried by the captain. When they raised it in 2000, it was like lifting a ghost ship. It now sits in a conservation tank in North Charleston, still revealing secrets. It is a piece of Iron Age geography that sat silently waiting in the mud while the world changed above it. 1. The Lost Capital of America. We end where it all began. Everyone learns about Jamestown, 1607, and Plymouth, 1620. But the Spanish capital of Santa Elena on Paris Island was thriving in 1566, decades before the English arrived. This was the capital of La Florida, which stretched from the Keys to Newfoundland. It had a governor, forts, and a town plan, but the geography was harsh. Poor soil and hostile relations with local Native American tribes forced the Spanish to abandon it and retreat to St. Augustine. For centuries, its location was lost, buried under the Paris Island Marine Corps golf course. Archaeologists only rediscovered it recently. It rewrites the geographical history of the U.S. The first major European capital wasn't in Virginia or Massachusetts. It was on a golf course in South Carolina. After learning these 35 facts about South Carolina, tell us which one did you like the most or which one surprised you the most? Leave it in the comments. Let's see how many of us picked the same fact. And if you think we missed something or want to add your own fun fact, we'd love to hear from you. Your comments help us make every video even better. Also, if you notice any pronunciation slips here and there, thank you for your patience. We're working hard to get better with every video. And speaking of videos, there's another one on screen right now, so you can keep exploring the geography of our beautiful country. But before you go, don't forget to subscribe and give it a like so we can keep learning together. See you in the next one.